more about it and get to know those characters that did not get fleshed out in movies.
Well, I thought they did a little bit of that in the newest Spider-Man where we saw him in high school and he had to deal with being in high school, but he had to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It was a little
Like
bit.
time
It was a little
management.
bit of that where he, yeah, it was a little bit like I gotta fight the
Not a
vulture.
weakness, but it's also a weakness in a sense. Like,
Yeah.
Because
making
it's like
it so they have to
it's
handle
that
something in their
struggle to
life.
try to like maintain your life while also doing this thing.
Yeah.
That is one of the things I love about Persona because
Yeah.
it actually makes you have to deal with the whole
Yeah.
balancing your lives.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a
The
shame.
thing from Homecoming was that it was more that he was kind of like, you know, screw this. I want to just go be a hero full time. Why do I need to do this? I'm a freaking superhero.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Which is
You know,
a teenager thing to do.
And again,
honestly.
well, and the fact that it's surprising that Tony Stark of all people is telling him, no kid, stay in
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, kid, don't be me.
That's, at one point you actually said that, kid, don't be me.
Finish school and then be a superhero.
Okay, but you know Tony would have quit school if he had had the option to be a superhero when he was in school.
Yes,
like he
yeah.
would have.
Yes.
Like,
Also,
in a
everybody who
heartbeat.
says Tony Stark
In
doesn't
a
have a
heartbeat.
superpower, he has one superpower. He can't get knocked out. Look at how many times he gets punched in the face by people who are super strong.
Yeah.
The level of turns he makes
He
in the
just-
air.
he
And
got-
somehow he's just
He
like,
got so
"I'm
used
fine."
to staying awake during being blackout drunk that he just he has a tolerance.
So he does have a superpower beyond being rich. And that's another thing, like simple superpowers. If you're working with like superheroes, like you have the ones that are like, oh, I'm super strength, I have lightning shooting from my fingers and eyeballs.
Let's be real here. Like don't like waste your time trying to come up with the most unique power set in the world. Everything's been done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to make your character unique in other ways.
Like, and also, and again, simple powers that are everyday, like they can't get knocked out. You wouldn't ever really notice that until somebody points it out.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
Or they are like awkwardly perceptive. Like, a friggin' monk, he can tell a guy with long pants is wearing 2 different color socks. And he's all like, I can't do this. Please, you gotta talk to somebody else.
It's kind of like how Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi is like, really, I have to train her?
Yeah.
Actually, that's what I think.
He was so good.
A lot of
Yes, he
people
was.
didn't like how they portrayed Luke because the extended universe with all the fan works that were published and everything made him into such a Mary Sue. He was overpowered.
Yeah, he was always like winning every fight.
He was
whirling in there with 2
like-
lightsabers, like kicking all the butt. It's like, but
Yeah.
we can't have that because this is about the new generation. And if we have EU Luke here, he's gonna take every scene.
Yeah.
Like he's a one-man army. He can solve every problem. There's no conflict when EU Luke
And
walks
that's like,
into a
Yes.
if you think about it, like he got in this situation where he thought he began to think like the Jedi. He started to think light is good, dark is bad, despite his earlier, younger self being all like, there's good in everybody, you just have to find it. When the whole thing happened with Kylo, or Ben at the time,
Yeah.
he assumed evil despite still knowing there was good in him.
Well,
He just said, you know,
yeah.
that's not worth it.
And he,
Well,
I'm not kill him. He realized he was wrong. He realized it a second
Yeah,
too.
but
late.
that broke him.
Well,
Yes.
and the other problem is that the reason he even got arrogant and like that in the first place is because he bought into his own, he
Yeah,
bought into the
his own
hype
hype.
Yes.
the universe threw on him.
But
Pretty much saying,
that's a
"Dude,
good,
just
this is a
Yes.
good thing to think about, and
Yeah.
not just with Luke, but you see this in Legend of Korra when they go into what happened with Aang, is, you know, a character that we see as like a perfect cinnamon roll within the context of their
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Like, after their story's over, they're not
They still
always gonna be
exist.
perfect. Like, they solved the problems in their life that were related to this conflict.
Right.
Like Luke, he was fighting a war against the Empire. But then trying to rebuild a Jedi Order, that's something completely different than just like
Yes.
blowing up a Death Star.
Yeah, exactly.
That is
Yeah.
way more complex.
Yeah.
That's a long-term thing. You gotta like set goals, you gotta stay focused,
Yeah.
you gotta deal with all these children.
Exactly.
You gotta not buy into your own hype.
No,
You know?
How many people here have ever watched Zero Punctuation video game reviews?
No, I haven't.
we watch them regularly.
They're
Yeah.
amazing. You
Okay.
should watch them.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The way he talks is great. His reviews are pretty accurate. There's a
Okay.
few times I've disagreed with him.
Okay, good.
I even like the older accessibility in gaming one the most.
Yes.
Mhm.
And he wrote a book
Okay.
that I think is something we don't see enough, and it's the what happens after they're done being a hero.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
the book is called We'll Save the Galaxy for Food.
And also the audiobook's great because his voice is great.
Yeah,
and
he
he's
narrates it,
narrating
and it's amazing.
What was it called again?
We'll save the galaxy for food. Remember, honey, in his videos about a year and a half ago, he was advertising it. My new book, We'll Save the Galaxy for Food, is out now.
What a great title. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, I'm not
Oh,
going to
even
tell
better
you
is the
the end
character on the
because
front holding a
end-
sign that says "We'll save." That says
Yeah.
the title. We'll save the galaxy for food.
Yeah, but basically it
Yeah.
starts out where you
Mhm.
have these pilots
Mhm.
that used to like go around saving the galaxy, going to planets.
Yeah.
And
Just
they
saving
were
all
the
these aliens
heroes,
from
they
evil
were
robots
paid in
and-
luxuries. Some of
Yeah.
them like were,
Yeah.
or some of the star pilots were married off to these like amazing like queens of different planets, and they were just living in the lap of luxury.
Yeah.
And then one day somebody develops instant transportation.
And nobody needs to hire these pilots anymore, so now
Oh.
nobody's taking these trade routes, and there's no need for any of them anymore.
So
They ain't got jobs, they ain't got money. And you know, marrying the beautiful Amazon woman sounds great until you're living with her. And,
Yeah.
she's like, get a job! She doesn't know anything about your life, and she wants you to get a job, like working the farms, and like,
and like so because like they basically live on their glory days.
Okay.
They wait at the terminals for the different
Mhm.
like different major
Sure. Yeah.
hubs and just go, hey, I'll take you on an adventure. I'll tell you about my glory days. And like to get by because they don't really get that many customers, they also have to work with pirates.
Okay.
to like create these like conflicts to make their tours more exciting.
Okay.
So like when you look at the dichotomy of what happens after the hero,
That's much more.
Yeah.
like they want
Yeah.
to be that good guy, but they need to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like who is your character once like the simple conflict is over? Once things are no longer black and white, good versus evil. What are they doing when they're just trying to live?
Like I
Right.
know that like J.K. Rowling came out with the Cursed Child and all, but what I want to know is what happened the year after the 7th book
Yes.
when he went to go try to be an Auror, and they're like, we see you didn't finish Hogwarts.
Yeah.
You don't have
Like I want to be in the room. I want to be a fly on the wall, just listening to that conversation.
It's like we know you're Harry Potter, but we do have requirements. You need to get your wizard GED.
Yeah, like Harry Potter and the Wizard GED.
Can we write this? Can we write this fanfic, please?
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but that's the interesting. Like sometimes you just want to write the story about what happens when they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm currently working on a SWAT Cats fan fiction, but what happens after, what happened in the original series, but passing it on to the next one, like what if Razor got hurt and T-Bone went with turmoil type thing. and-
Yeah. There's so much that can be done with just
Yeah.
like stepping outside of the normal like story formula and just trying to go after it.
Yeah.
And a lot of stories have like where people go on these grandiose adventures and they go across the universe, but then in the end they just happily return home. I'm sorry, if I went into space and went on a grandiose adventure, there is no way in hell
Yeah, that's
I'm
like,
ever
I'm
going
not
home.
living on the
I'll
land
leave a
after
card
that.
saying, hey guys, I'm
Exactly.
fine. I'm on an alien space adventure. I'm never coming home, by the
Yeah.
way.
But I mean, good examples of ones that did it right is like Doctor Who, where like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, Martha, she didn't just go be a regular doctor after that. Like, who could?
Yeah.
She goes work for UNIT so she can keep doing alien stuff. And like Rose, yeah,
What about
she could
Rose?
live a
Rose,
normal
yeah.
life with her new doctor in her new
Yeah.
dimension.
Yeah.
But also, she's
a
fighting
badass.
aliens there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the stuff that like, and often that type of information is left to the fanfic writers. And sometimes I want to know what the official writer would do with
Yeah,
them.
like,
Yeah, right.
where did we go? What did we do?
And also there's stories where people will get superpowers and at the end of the story lose the superpowers.
I hate
Like-
that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like Heroes was a big problem
Oh,
with that.
yeah,
They're like,
big problem.
oh hey look, the eclipse, I have superpowers. Hey look, another eclipse, where'd my superpowers go?
But even worse is
Yeah.
when you keep saying they're gonna lose their superpowers and they're like, you know what, this is the sacrifice I have to make, and at the end they don't.
Oh my god,
I
that's
don't
even worse.
know if you guys ever watched the Powerpuff Girls anime. The beginning was terrible, the end was terrible, the middle was great. But the ending was awful because they were like building up like, oh, well the energy that turned you into the Powerpuff Girls we need that to defeat him. It's like, okay, so we have to sacrifice our superpowers to steal him away, and our talking dog has to go back to being a regular mechanical dog, and it's sad. We feel bad about it. There's pathos, and it's like, okay, I hate this kind of ending, but they're making me feel about it. All right, and then they do it, and at the end. They still have their superpowers, and Mojo Jojo still has his, even though he was supposed to lose his, and the dog is still a talking dog, and everything's normal. I'm like, you built up all my emotions, all my emotions for these characters, and then nothing changed.
And at the end, you pulled the ending from the regular Powerpuff Girls show. And once again, the day is saved. Thanks to the Powerpuff Girls.
Although the one good thing about the ending was there was a bit before then where they had to like jump dimensions for some stuff, and they briefly jump into the dimension of the original Powerpuff Girls, and you can see the Powerpuff Girls in the background. So they're like, okay, yes, this is actually an alternate dimension. It's not the same thing. It's like, good, thank you.
Also, another thing is 2 twists.
Mm-hmm.
2.
Yeah, no, not two.
Either 1 or 2, or no more than that.
Case in point, the Soul Eater anime. I'm not going to go into details, but at the end, they got to that point where they overtook the manga and they needed to finish it, and the manga wasn't done, so they had to figure out an ending. So they were all like, let's just throw things at the ending that they got to was good. Getting there was, dartboard, just, this happened, it's a twist. This happened. This character's dead. No, wait, they're not dead. Okay, this character's dead. No, they're okay too. Okay, here's another twist. They all have new special powers. None of them do anything.
It's like the new power is there for one episode.
Yeah, like, oh, this power looks really cool. It had 0 effect.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another cool power. Does nothing.
Mr. War, fire phasers. Fire. No effect.
Yes, that for 5 episodes.
What I mean by that is
FMA was the same way. I mean,
the first anime?
Yeah,
the first anime was the same thing. It was terrible.
Full Metal Alchemist, no subtitle.
Yeah, they went full Nazi. It's like, oh yeah, because we couldn't understand the allegory before that they're Nazis. You have to put literal anime Hitler here? Alright.
but like, you have situations where like, you want to kill off a character, but you don't really. Okay, so you can have the twist where you killed them off and, oh, they're actually okay. But for the love of God, don't make them also a zombie.
That whole trope. Yeah, that's like,
or like have them now that they've come back, they're the villain. Like,
dang it, guys.
it's like, or if they are the villain, do not have them return to normal. Like,
Or at the very least, if you're doing these things, have it be like believable, put thought into it. Not just the, oh, I died, now I'm evil. Like, okay, why though? Like, is there like something going on in your brain space that's causing this, or is this an arbitrary decision? Like, oh, new start, gonna do the other thing now.
okay, now we're into the last 10 minutes. Is there any questions? Because there was supposed to be a longer Q&A section.
Yeah.
One thing I've heard when you're building characters, the good guys, bad guys. Something I heard Quentin Tarantino say is that when he writes his characters, it's a huge backstory. And sometimes he writes backstories in for all characters, but the audience may never know.
Yes.
But it helps inform you as a writer, and it makes your characters more accessible because Quentin says it's like putting flesh on a skeleton when you do that sort of. I just wondered, will you guys recommend that?
Oh yes,
Absolutely,
definitely.
Because you really don't understand your character until you know where they're coming from.
Right.
So even if you never talk about the backstory,
Right.
you need to have it in mind because it informs how they react to things.
Right.
If they had some tragic thing in their past, like how was that?
Or
gonna
were they
affect-
just a normal person that got into happenstance?
Yeah.
And have 0 idea what they're doing, but are totally winging it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like one example I have for a role play character that I do. Like, I had this whole backstory that I wrote out thus far, and I've been role-playing this character for ages. This has never come up.
Okay.
I have this whole backstory where, like, he used to work for his queen, and, he was a diplomat, and he was in love with her, but he never got to tell her, and then she died, and he was trying to save her, and he couldn't. So he's got this whole guilt thing, and he tried to put diplomacy behind him because it didn't work. The war happened anyway. He failed to save the queen.
Yeah.
But then he gets pulled back into, the gods chose him to be this, diplomat. None of this has come up, but I mean,
Yeah,
but when I'm writing him, having this in mind makes it so much easier to
Yeah.
think like, how does he react to these situations
Yeah,
in front of
okay.
him?
And then I have a character in my story, Alien Spike. He's one of the, there's 3 immortals in the story, and I have their entire history from birth to current events
Yeah,
written out
okay.
in notebooks.
Mhm.
And he never wanted to be anything. He wanted to be a security guard. He didn't want to join the military like his parents wanted. He didn't want to be an ultra cool werewolf, because actually he's also a werewolf, but that's because of story reasons.
Okay.
He just wanted to be a person that
Yeah.
existed in the world. He didn't
Yeah.
want to be remembered. He just
Yeah.
wanted to live his life and
Just
die.
wanted to play like.
Have some kids and die.
Okay.
And then he just happens to be on duty one day that this lady breaks into where he's guarding and like kidnaps some important experimental like girl, and he's like, you can't just take her.
Like, you can't leave this kid with me, what am I gonna do?
But like in the story, that really never comes up, other than the fact that he never wanted to be a leader, he never wanted to be anything,
Yeah.
but he's currently running the entire planet.
Like everything went weird, now he's immortal and a werewolf, and he's in charge of the earth, and he didn't want any of it. But that's also why he's a good leader, because he didn't
Like,
want
the best
to be.
leaders are the ones who don't want to be leaders, which equals out to a really weird situation where it's like, but they would never be leaders, they don't want to be unless they're
It's-
forced to be.
It's like the Hitchhiker's Guide thing, you know?
Yeah,
the real
example.
leader of the galaxy is some guy, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, who likes cats.
Yeah, but that's.
I wanted to point out as a counterpoint to that, though, that works for Tarantino because he's a madman.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you have to be a little mad, but that particular piece of advice is very good.
But
Yeah.
I have to
I
say,
was
the
gonna
difference
say-
between a person who has voices in their head and a writer is if they write it down.
Ah.
Well, just one of the
No,
things
go
that
ahead.
one
Yeah,
of,
go
one of my professors said was, yes, a backstory for your character is important, but keep it simple. You can throw the details in later, but mainly we should just know how did they get from wherever they started to where you're telling the story
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
like,
And
to some point, excessive detail is a problem, but.
only, you know, the details that led from here to there.
Oh, gotcha.
Wherever you're
Okay.
starting
It
from.
depends on
Okay.
how long your story is going to be. If it's going to be a movie, yes, keep it simple.
Yeah.
However, if it's going to be a long extended series of multiple books or seasons,
If you're
Well,
writing that long run shonen anime,
Well,
you know,
assuming that you're just starting the story and you've not had it, and you don't have a chance to get that far yet, you know, when you're literally at the starting point.
the problem with not planning your characters ahead of time, and the reason I don't recommend ever just jumping into a story, you can if it's a short story. But
Okay.
if you think for a second while you're writing it, that it's like, wow, I really like how the story is going. Stop what you're doing. Take a break. Write your character's backstory.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just going to end up with inconsistent characters. Like, because as you get to know the characters, you're writing them, you solidify things, but then it's not consistent. Like
Okay.
any long-running
Psych.
plagiarization in like
That's-
Fairly Odd Parents, where like originally Cosmo is kind of suave, but
Well-
then they just keep railing on the he's stupid thing until that's his own.
Well,
thing.
that's
what
different
you
from
end up
what,
with.
I was talking specifically about backstory. You should,
Well,
the
but
only
no,
thing regarding
backstory
backstory is,
informs
Because you don't
personality.
know when you're going to use it,
Yeah.
or if you're going to use it.
well, I mean, like, if you should have the plan for where the character is going to go, and you should have just enough to get you started on where they are, and then you can, you know, as you flesh it out and kind of figure out, okay, this is where I want to take this, you can fill
The
in
problem
that.
But again, you need to know the big things, the things that inform how they.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The bare bones, you have the minimum
But the question
you
is,
need.
how- like
Yeah.
you said, how to, like, where, like, just bare bones, but you do need to know, did they know these people ahead of time, or is there going to be a character
That's-
later in the story that is
That they
introduced?
know, like,
like-
are any like problems from their past going to come back and, you know, stab them?
And
Yeah.
if they, like, and sometimes you don't know this ahead of time, it comes up when you're writing, but also it's bad writing to do it that way, where you just go, and randomly, this new challenger appeared, but they've known them all their
It's like,
life.
it's like that one, like, there was this manga writer who was talking about, like, they were talking to one of their colleagues, and like, a chapter had ended with like, oh, somebody's behind this corner, who is it? So they asked their colleague, okay, who is it? like, what's happening next? And they're like, oh, I haven't decided yet.
Like
I don't
the
know."
with
It's like, don't be that person, the basement, make it up as you go.
The writer for Attack on Titan admitted the reason he was taking so long to get to the basement is he had no idea what was in the basement.
It's like,
And that comes
if you're
with
gonna set up in
backstory.
Aaron's
Yeah.
basement, please know what's in Aaron's basement.
Yeah, because like again, when you start writing a story, like not knowing their history, you don't know what's going to be important for them to already know. So you end up in situations where you have this whole exposition, and then and then like later you're like, oh well, I decided this character knew about this. It's like, then why did you have all that exposition?
Yeah.
Or like there'll be a character who's ignorant of something, but then later on when you get to their backstory, you realize they should have known about that. Why didn't they know about that?
Yeah.
There's like all the little continuity errors that come from not having these things planned out.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Like-
again, you can write without the backstory, but it helps to have it.
If
you
you're
can't-
writing without backstory, it better be a first draft, and then you fix all that stuff.
Yeah.
The next draft.
And then sometimes there's issues where like you plan for like Supernatural. You plan for a series to be 5 seasons long.
And then
those
suddenly
backstories are
it's 10
important to
seasons
that.
long, 10 seasons long, and it will never end.
Yeah.
Well,
but like so,
Again, to be fair, the original creator only wanted the 5 seasons.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Actually-
Like,
that's why
Actually,
it's
he,
terrible.
actually he intended only 3 seasons. Then,
Oh, really?
then they told him, no, make it 5, and he's like,
yeah,
well,
but that's one of the
Everything
different.
was perfect. After that, it's just like, I don't know.
you know, and he's like, okay, fine, I can work around that. But at this point,
Yeah.
I kind of
what I
finished.
told you for the one character with the backstory,
Yeah.
like that's what I have for him. Like
Mhm.
that's what I know. Like I know that he didn't know much other than he needed to go get
Yeah.
that lady who
I
stole the
mean,
girl.
we haven't filled in every detail of his like 3,000 year life.
Yeah, no, 5,000.
5,000 year
5,000
life.
years that is
But that
dead,
that important beginning where he was just
Also-
security guard.
Diversify in mortal characters. Do not have them all be broody.
Ah,
We're not-
good point. Yeah.
I actually, how I handled mine is they play games.
Oh.
Like during, like I don't know exactly what happened, but I know they each took turns being the bad guy. So like they could have adventures and make people go do things for them and change the world by one of them playing the villain for a little bit.
Meanwhile, I have an immortal character, and his whole shtick is, he's at that point where he's lived life
Just
so well.
doesn't
Nothing,
care.
nothing matters. Everybody's temporary. I don't care. So he's the biggest hedonist, and he'll casually just do terrible things, but it doesn't matter to him because it's like, okay, you'll die now or in 20 years. I don't think you understand how little time that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like-
On a cosmic scale, you are. I can't even
Yeah.
measure it with my fingers.
He's beyond the point of caring about anything. And the things he does care about, he is obsessive about because, oh my God, I might only have 50 years with this person. That's nothing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but that doesn't equal brooding. That equals like they can be really awkwardly joyous about things that you would otherwise be like.
Excessively affectionate, just like PDA all over the place. I don't care who's watching.
It's like it's not like they'll be able to have in 20 years.
Like, I'm not
remember
wasting
this.
a second of this. I'm not playing
Yeah.
games here.
And that's also a thing, like with characters that can see the future or know that something's going to happen and it's inevitable, not all of them will be all like, oh, there's nothing I can do. Some of them will be like, well, there's something I can do, so,
So let's have some fun with this. I think that's where they're going with, we don't know where this is going because it's Kingdom Hearts and it's not over. But this Master of Masters guy that they've just brought in, he seems to know what's happening. He seems to just be having fun making it happen.
yeah. Because like having inevitable characters, and then you come up with a question where you eventually confront them and be like, well, you said this was inevitable, but then you kind of made it happen.
It's
So
like, well,
was
yeah,
it inevitable?
Because it's inevitable, so I made it happen. But was it inevitable before you did it? It doesn't matter! Causality!
Yes.
So, but you can also have good guys that try to stop things, and it just breaks the universe.
And then they make it happen.
Or sometimes you have Beast of the Billion Backs situation.
Yeah.
It's like, oops, that's another reality we don't want to talk about. Just check out the time.
Yeah, where we at?
We are exactly 9 o'clock.
Oh,
Wait
okay.
till they open the door.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, let's go.
I hope this was helpful. We did end up kind of winging it because we were
That's
worried
good.
about like what time we were actually at today.
Yeah, oh my gosh.